Good evening and welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your night to join us for tonight's public hearing. This is a public hearing for a permit application received by EGLE for the Liberty Street Creek restoration, City of Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County. My name is Ryan Blazik. I'm with EGLE's Environmental Support Division. I'll just be your moderator for tonight's public hearing. Just as moderator, I have a couple things to go through before we get started. First thing is, this is what our agenda looks like for the hearing tonight. So we're going to start off with an introduction. And for those of you who haven't joined us for these hearings before, it's kind of broken up into two parts. We're going to start off with an information session where the applicant has an opportunity to provide information on the proposed project. We'll follow that up with a short question and answer session. That'll take us to around 6:30. And then we will go through the other ways to submit a comment along with the official hearing where you'll be able to make a comment tonight for the record on this application, and everybody will have a chance to make a comment. We'll explain how we'll do that a little bit later too. Then we're also going to talk about where to find other information, who to contact in case you have additional questions. All right, so just so you're aware, all lines are going to be muted during the hearing. You'll be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. However, you will have an opportunity to ask a question verbally out loud during the Q&A session, and then of course you can make your statement during the hearing, and we'll just explain how we'll do that later, like I said before. You can submit a question anytime using the Q&A box in the Zoom toolbar, and we'll answer those questions received during the Q&A session. And also, just so you're aware, we are recording this hearing, and it will be posted on EGLE's YouTube channel in a couple days, so you can watch it again or forward it on if you'd like. All right, with that, I would like to invite our other EGLE staff who are on the line to turn their cameras on and introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jim Bales. I work in the Water Resources Division out of the Jackson District Office. I'm the permit processor for this application. It's an application. We're reviewing several hundred feet of stream restoration work on Liberty Creek in Ann Arbor.
And I'm Jeff Pierce. I'm the district supervisor for our Lansing and Jackson District Office Water Resources Unit.
All right, thank you both, Jim and Jeff, for being here for the hearing. We're going to roll right into the information session that we talked about. We should have Teresa Bridges in the audience with the City of Ann Arbor, and we are going to unmute Teresa when we find her in there. It looks like you're unmuted, Teresa, and I have your slides here. So if you could just let me know when you want to change slides, I can change them for you. And then if you could keep the presentation around 10 or 15 minutes, that would be great so that we have time for some questions. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, perfect. You can take it away and just let me know when to change.
All right, very good. Hi, my name is Teresa Bridges. I'm with the City of Ann Arbor. I'm a project manager for the Liberty Creek Restoration Project. It's actually Liberty Street that the creek is behind, and our project is to restore the creek banks and improve stormwater quality in the area. Next slide, please. So my presentation will include the introduction, a reason for the project, our current design, and examples of completed projects. So go ahead. So the introduction, as I mentioned, the Liberty Street, it's a creek that runs east of Westwood Apartment Drive. It's west of Virginia Park. It's north of Liberty Street and south of Glendale Circle in a heavily wooded area. And we have hired licensed professional engineers, HRC, Hubble, Roth, and Clark, and hydrologists to study this so that we can address the erosion with stream bank stabilization facilities. We would be improving the water quality. We want to remove failing infrastructure, and we want to protect the city infrastructure from the influence of the creek. Next slide, please. So the existing conditions, please forward to the next slide. You can see These are pictures taken of the creek showing severe bank erosion, where you see the roots and the vertical banks and the sediment that has built up. So go ahead and next slide. These are more, and then as you can imagine, over time, these could continue and go, affecting homes and properties and yards. Next slide, please. And then, so some of the characteristics of this creek is that some areas have been over-widened because an excessive amount of sedimentation has gathered. Therefore, to facilitate the flow, the flow has widened, and then it takes the sides of the banks with it. Next slide, please. We've got where the most upstream end at the westernmost end is a failing retaining wall, where there's a retaining wall that was built in order to provide some armoring for the creek to take a pretty drastic turn to the south, and in this area the culvert has become perched. It's eroding out from underneath the culvert, so that is putting that culvert in jeopardy in for the future. Next slide, please. So we also have sanitary sewer running through the area, and so these large manholes can be seen. So one of the things that our plan addresses is to armor with riprap, with large stones, to ensure that the stormwater will not erode around the manhole, and end up revealing more of it. We need to keep it protected. Next slide, please. And then some of the trees have fallen. That's par for course with what happens with erosion, is that it takes the land and the trees come down eventually because of their weakened state with their exposed root system. Next slide, please. So the creek restoration design will focus on creating a natural stream that functions for high flow volumes experienced by this section, and reducing erosion. With the amount of development that has gone on in the city, even though there are detention requirements, it still has a way of bringing a lot of water and to the area in this creek. There have been neighbors who have attested to it and how far it comes up their banks for their yards. So what we want to do in this project is to help settle the water to some extent and create the capacity, as well as create a uniform channel so that it doesn't have the turbidity that will take the erosion, make for erosive velocities. Next slide, please. So the plans are shown here, and we have the plans in 4 sections. So this is the most downstream end, in which it joins in with the Washtenaw County Water Resources drain, and that joins up from the south. It comes from Liberty Street and joins into this creek section in which, then it goes on for the Washtenaw County Water Resources to take beyond this. So from here, this is where we pick up the maintenance portion of the creek system. So it is our charge to maintain this waterway. Next slide, please. So this is the middle area up from the downstream area, and it does get close to, as you can see on the closer to the bottom of this page, it does the bank does get close to properties, private properties, private lots. While the whole site is within a common area for a neighborhood, the creek itself does get close to property lines, which can be dangerous for those properties if left unmaintained. So we want to make sure that we armor up, and that's what's being shown in these hatching area is the extensive stabilization that will be installed with tow wood and riprap, as well as, and so that's on the outside edge of the creek path. But also then through the creek itself, there are hatched areas that are showing riffled, constructed riffles, which are, in layman's terms, it's a big bunch of stones that help to slow down the water. And then also some sediment ponds, like pockets, little sediment pockets will be formed so that where these riffles are, the water slows down, has a chance to settle out some of that sediment where where it's been designed to settle out. Next slide, please. And then this is the upstream area of the larger of the two areas. I said there were 4 pages, so this is the third of the 4 pages, but those 3 pages were continuous and have match lines. This upstream area is just as the stormwater comes out of the large culvert that was installed a few decades ago. So the water comes back out of the culvert, and this is that area then. And then if you go to the next slide, please. We've labeled it the western upstream area. And so this is the area that is it's at the west end of this wooded area. And it is just east of Westwood Apartment Drive. And this is where we need to remove the wall and install. We have ledge rock that is going in, and that's these large, very large rocks in a rectangular shape that creates steps in the creek. And then additionally, we've got the cross vanes, we've got the tow wood, we've got, many features that we are implementing in order to regulate the water, in order to calm the water down as it comes into this area, and stabilize those stream banks, as well as hold them for the future and give them a chance to grow vegetation. And then the vegetation will help to also settle the water down. So in the end, we want this area to be green and flourishing. But it will take, as these plans have shown, it will take some tree removals in this area in order to get back there with the equipment and move the grade around. There's earthwork to be done. We want to get the side slopes to a uniform maximum slope, 3-on-1. We're also putting in some bank folds, some ledges on the sides for good flow through the creek. Yeah, I think that's it for now. So next slide, please. The tree removals, as I've mentioned, and many of the trees, you know, in quantity, are small understory type trees. So we have 6 to 12-inch trees that we've counted to be 32 of them, and we've got 13-inch to 19-inch are 6 of those, 20 to 29 are 3, and 30 to 39-inch there are 2 of those. We do have them identified, so some of them, or I should say most of them, are not landmark trees, but we are taking into consideration landmark trees in order to get replacement trees in. We do have an intention. We haven't laid them out exactly yet, but we do have an intention to put some replacement trees back in there to regrow some of this wooded area. Next slide, please.
All right. Thanks, Teresa. Just to give you a heads up, we have a couple minutes left, and then we're going to have to move on to the next part of the night to make sure we have time to answer people's questions.
Okay, I'll speed it up here. Creek access, this has been, it's a tough site to get into, so there are a few places that we've looked at. We've looked at coming through Virginia Park, and we've looked at coming through some side yard access points. The slopes are difficult, which it makes it impossible or nearly impossible to come in off Westwood Apartment Drive. So we're putting some options out there to see what is best utilized by the contractor. Next slide, please. This slide will show highlighted in yellow where those 4 pages are, where to the left is the westernmost upstream area, and to the right is the 3 upstream, middle, and downstream areas. Next slide, please. And then next slide, please. Examples of completed projects. So during construction, a lot of exposure, but they're making the better slopes and lots of riprap. Next slide, please.
Yeah, maybe I could just flip through these if they're
Sure.
examples of projects, if that works to
Yep.
be more efficient. And then if you want to say anything about them while we go through, feel free.
Yep, the tow wood, we're going to be utilizing existing wood that's on site. So we'll dig that into the banks and help to use some of the existing site materials. So, yep. And then this one's cool. It's got an underwater. If you go back one real quick, the underwater to the left is what it looks like when it gets submerged, and that feature is great. Yep.
I guess that was it.
And these are all the contacts for the project.
All right. Yeah, thanks for providing the information, Teresa. We're going to move right in to the question and answer session. So we have some time. We'll have Jim and Jeff on. And if anybody has a question, they can submit it using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. So you can just type your question in there to us, send it to us. Or if you want to ask your question out loud verbally, you can raise your hand by clicking the raise hand icon. That'll raise your hand and we'll call on you to ask your question. If there's any phone-in callers, you can select *9 on your phone. That will raise your hand in Zoom, and we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number, and we'll be able to unmute you so you can ask your question. One thing to keep in mind is that this part of the night is for asking questions. So if you have a statement that you would like to make for the record on this application, that'll be the next part of it tonight. So hold on to that statement if you have one you want to make. This is for asking questions. All right, so we're going to start off. I'll kind of go back and forth between the raised hands and the questions in the Q&A box. I do have a couple in the Q&A box. How many of the removed trees do you anticipate replacing is the first question.
Good evening, this is John Ballant. I'm one of the engineers with Hubble, Roth & Clark. In our contract documents, and you don't see this necessarily in the plans, but we are looking to replace 60 trees in the bid form. So we have 60 large trees and 30 large trees and 30 medium trees.
All right, thanks, John. All right, has the final access routes been determined yet?
Again, this is John. They have not. There are multiple easements through the area, and we are suggesting a route through Virginia Park, but that is not confirmed yet. A lot of it's going to depend on the contractor and the best way to do the work.
All right, thank you. What is the water source for the creek, and what does it empty into?
I'll go again. The water source for the creek is just upstream storm sewer. It's not, upstream is not a natural creek system. It is storm sewer from the apartment complexes and further to the west. And the downstream system is, and I'm trying to remember the name of the creek. It
Allen
is,
Creek.
well, it's Murray Washington Creek first, and then Allen Creek ultimately. So yeah, so there's two. It empties into Murray Washington Creek, which is the Washtenaw County drain, and then into Allen Creek. That's the downstream.
All right, thanks. And then I've got 2 questions in here which are the same. So I'll read that, and then we'll go into some of your raised hands and make sure we get to some of those. And the 2 questions that are the same is how long will it take the project once it starts, and then the other one is when the project is scheduled. When is the project scheduled to start, and when is it expected to be complete? So basically, the kind of the same question: when will the project start, and when will it be done?
So
go ahead, Teresa. Sorry.
Yep. So we're looking to start as soon as possible in February. There is a consideration for nesting wildlife in the trees before March 31st. So we want to ensure that the trees come down before March 31st. So we're looking at about a 4-month project, and it could go either from February through June, or we may, based on permitting restrictions, we may need to phase the project where we would do the upstream end first, going from mid-February to March 31st, and then again picking back up July 1st to August 31st. So we have a couple of options we're looking at this point.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. So we're going to call one of the raised hands, Vincent Caruso. We are going to unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself, and you could ask your question of the panel.
Hi, thanks so much for having the meeting tonight. Appreciate it. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So one of the big issues I have is the deep water that's at the eastern part of the creek, the Allen's Creek, near the park. I've gone back there several times. I work with the city occasionally doing measuring levels and such. And I'm concerned about the high levels of water that get into that back area, where kids could get potentially, in trouble.
Vincent, do you have a question? Just because we have a lot of raised hands, we need to get to questions. If you have a statement or concerns, we can save that for the next part of the night, which is the hearing, will you be able to make a statement?
Okay, well, the other thing I was gonna mention was the landmark trees that we have behind our house and several of them also. Is there some way we can preserve those trees if they're on the edge where the, it's marked out, but the very edge of it is in the zone, so to speak. And it'd be great if we could preserve those trees. There's very large trees back in there. Some of them are like 187 inches at breast height. So they're very old trees. They're very good looking trees. I mean, they're in good shape. So I would hate to see those go. So I appreciate it if we could avoid taking out some of these large legacy trees. Ann Arbor wants to save legacy trees. The state of Michigan wants to save landmark
So
trees.
Vincent, I'm sorry to move, but I want to make sure we get to other people's questions. So is the question related to if we can save the trees that you're indicating?
Yeah, that's one, and then the high water issue. That can be
So,
dealt with.
I can answer the tree question. What we can do is we can come out and look at those trees specifically and maybe have a meeting with you before we go, and just look at those trees and see and just confirm if they are or are not in the limits of the project. There should be some stakes out on site that would
Right.
show the limits.
Yep. Okay, great. Yeah, I'd love to do that. Thanks.
Yeah, and then can anybody address the high water part of the question, I guess?
So I'm actually not sure exactly. It sounded like the high water was further downstream, or is that at the entrance into the county drain is where we're talking about the high water?
Well, it's near the Virginia Park where it's a
Yeah,
very steep hill there, and it
Yeah,
accumulates
so-
a lot of water. So
That's kind of further down there. That's out of our scope of work. So we did not do any survey or any investigation further down. Our project basically stops at the county drain where the county drain starts.
okay, well, it'd be good to get somebody to look into that. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks for your question, Vincent. All right, we have another raised hand. Rita Caruso, we are going to unmute you and you can ask your question.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, but I read the plans as best I could. And I saw a couple of terms that weren't really defined. So there were the terms, I'd like to know what is the difference between these terms? Easement, limits of disturbance, zone of influence of the proposed work, and limits of construction. And the second question is I would like someone to address why the plans for staging and access were not integrated with the permit for the work on the creek, since you can't do the work on the creek without accessing the area. And I think that's led to some issues in the neighborhood. Thank you.
So, Rita, I'm going to start with your second question first about the access plans. So when we apply to EGLE for a permit, we do that pretty close to the beginning of the project. So we applied for this permit, I believe, in February of this year. The plans were not developed to the point where you see them today until probably September of this year, October of this year. So it took that long to develop the plans. And then we had to work with, we worked with the city of Ann Arbor Parks Department to gain access to to Virginia Park, which was initially off the table, but through additional discussions, we worked out something with them to be able to allow a contractor to stage in that area. And then your first question regarding easement, limits of disturbance. So easements are the legal documents that allow for work on essentially private property, but that private property has given the city, in this case, access to operate and maintain utilities. Limits of disturbance is something we put on the plans in order to show the maximum disturbance area that the contractor might have. It's not actual construction work necessarily, but it could be maybe they have to put in an access path to get equipment and materials back to that area. So that's what limits of disturbance is. And then the other thing we did stake out there that you may have seen we stake the top of bank, an existing top of bank and a proposed top of bank, and that would be just the top of the slope going down into the creek. And I don't know if I missed one of them or not.
Yeah, I also saw zone of influence of the proposed work, and I also saw limits of construction.
So limits of construction would be basically the same as limits of disturbance. It could have been just
Okay.
us mixing up our terms on the plan. Limits of disturbance, limits of construction, ideally the same thing. And then zone of influence, that would be more like a proposed top of bank, because that, I believe that's going to be where the slope begins. So that's just another term for top of bank.
Okay.
Thanks for your questions, Rita. All right. Next up, I have another raised hand. Nicholas Bell. We're going to unmute you and you can ask your question.
Thank you. It's a two-part question. The first part is, can you tell me what storm event it is designed to handle? So is it a kind of a 1 in 20-year event, 1 in 50-year event? How do you think about that as you do the design work?
Is Fatima's on there? Fatima,
Yes.
can you handle this one? Thank you.
Yes, this is Fatima with HRC. I'm the hydraulic engineer. So we did the stream design for bank full storm event, which is correspondent to 1.5-year storm events. So all these bank full benches, the riffles, tow woods, they were all designed for 1.5, 1.2-year storm event.
And so that would mean, I mean, obviously it's statistics, but anything more severe than that would be the creek will be out of its banks. Is that a correct
Yes.
understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And it's sort of related question, but not directly. And you may tell me it's outside the project. The Manchester West apartments and the other impermeable areas at the upstream side that flow, basically it's all punched through the embankment that the Westwood apartment drive sits on. Is there any thought been given by the city to hold more water or any water in that area? And when as I walk around that area, there's sort of seems to be big holding ponds, and even in quite heavy rainfall, sustained heavy rainfall, I've never seen any significant amount of water held in those ponds. So is the city thinking about slowing water down closer to its source rather than, or as well as managing it through the creek once it pours through that culvert? Because that is a big impermeable area just at the upstream end.
So this project is not for flooding concern. This project is for a stream restoration. So it can improve the flooding concern, but it's not necessarily for flooding. And the limit of the project starts from the east of Westwood Apartment Drive all the way to that 24-inch outlet culvert. And as I said, is for restoring the stream bank and creating natural channel within the incised.
Yeah, I understand the important distinction, and it was just really a question of as we know, with climate change, we will have more extreme rain events, and whilst it may not flood in the mathematical sense, that is still going to put a whole lot of water through the stream bed, with a risk that it we get the same situation recurs, that the bank erodes, and you'll be doing a similar project in a couple of decades time. But
and I'll jump in here. I know Jen Lawson, the water quality manager for the city, she is supposed to be on here, and she messaged me that she's having a problem with her mic.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank goodness. I love technology so much. I actually would like to, so hi, I'm Jennifer Lawson. I'm the water quality manager here at the city in the systems planning unit. Nick, to answer your question, from a holistic standpoint, you are absolutely correct. That large area of impervious surface upstream it would definitely, it definitely does give some impact to the downstream severity that we're seeing in the creek. The difficulty is that the city can't just go in and require Joe Q Public to make changes or alter private property without a site plan coming in or without a significant amount of construction going in. So that would be like a development or a redevelopment kind of thing. That being said, the city does look for opportunities on city-owned properties, partnering with developments that are coming in for either development or redevelopment to add to the resiliency level that we're seeing and incorporate stormwater mitigation and retention, detention for any storm flows that are coming in, recognizing that you're correct. Climate change is happening. We're seeing different storms. We're seeing more severe storms, but we are very limited in what we can do on either city-owned property or private property. So great question, but the city can't go on to private property and require changes until something pretty significant changes by code.
All right, thanks
Thank you for taking my questions. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks for your question, Nicholas. All right, and we are a little bit past where we need to be for moving on with the evening. We got to quite a few questions. There's still a few in the Q&A box, so if you'd like to have those questions answered, I'll be providing Jim's contact information at the end of tonight, so that if we didn't get to your question, that you can follow up with Jim and get those answered. But right now we're going to move into the next part of the evening, which is the hearing part, which is where everybody's going to have an opportunity to make a statement on the project for the record. In case you don't want to make a statement tonight, there are some other ways that you can provide your comments. You can do through EGLE's MyEnviro system, through submission HQ9-10RH-5GPG0. We're going to put the link to MyEnviro. It's in front of you. We're going to put that in the chat, so you can access it directly if you'd like to make comments through MyEnviro. But you can also submit them by mail to EGLE Water Resources Division at the Jackson District Office, Post Office Box 30458, Lansing, Michigan 48909-7958, and the comment period will be open until December 8th. So that's how long the comment period will be open. All right, we're going to go ahead and kick things off for the hearing tonight. So I'd like to invite Jim to read the opening statement for us.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Here we go. It takes a little while. There's a lot to read here, so hang in there with me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Bales, and I am the district representative in the Water Resources Division of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, also known as EGLE. I'll be serving as the hearing officer for this public hearing on EGLE's submission number HQ9-10RH-5GPG0. With me tonight is Jeff Pierce, the Water Resources Division Supervisor for the Jackson and Lansing offices. To describe how this is going to work tonight, I will begin with some background information about why we are here. I will then describe the purpose of the hearing and how your comments will be used. Following that, I will outline the procedures under which we will take your comments and then describe what will happen after tonight's hearing. There will then be time for you to provide comments, and we will spend the majority of the time tonight listening to those comments. At the end of the hearing, I will read the closing statement. By way of background information, the Water Resources Division is responsible for administering a variety of programs to help protect inland lakes and streams, wetlands, floodplains, sand dunes, and the Great Lakes. These programs regulate certain activities such as dredging or filling a lake, stream, or wetland, constructing a dam, constructing a marina, placing shore protection, or constructing docks, and building in a designated critical sand dune area, wetland, or floodplain. The law governing these responsibilities is the Natural Resources and Environmental Protection Act, 1994, PA 451, as amended, Act 451. We are here tonight because the city of Ann Arbor has proposed approximately 467 linear feet of stream restoration activities in the Liberty Street Creek, They propose the excavation of approximately 75 cubic yards of material and the placement of 109 cubic yards of fill below the ordinary high water mark of the stream. Proposed impacts include riprap, erosion protection, ledge rock, J-hook and cross vane installation, tow wood installation, pool and riffle construction, and bank full bench construction. In order for a permit to be granted, EGLE must find that the proposed activities described in the public notice meet certain criteria set by Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams of Act 451. In general, we must consider the effect of the proposed project on the stream. When reviewing an application for permit under the provisions of Part 301 Inland Lakes and Streams of Act 451, EGLE is charged to make the following considerations as required by Section 30106 of Part 301. The department shall issue a permit if it finds that the structure or project will not adversely affect the public trust or riparian rights, and the department shall not grant a permit if the proposed project or structure will unlawfully impair or destroy any of the waters or other natural resources of the state. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to give anyone interested in the proposed stream restoration project an opportunity to provide information that EGLE can use in making the decision whether or not to issue a permit. Please recognize that EGLE can only use the information you provide if it relates to the criteria that EGLE must use in making a decision. Some of you may simply want to express your support or opposition to the project. We will be happy to make note of your position, but please understand that EGLE is by law not allowed to base our decision on whether or not there's widespread support or opposition to the project. In just a moment, I will outline the procedures we will use for taking your comments. But before I do so, I need to mention that the notice of this hearing was published in the MLive Ann Arbor News on Sunday, November 30th, 2025. As we discussed at the beginning of the informational session, if you have a comment to provide, raise your hand in the Zoom toolbar to ensure that the hearing is conducted in a fair manner. We'll follow these steps. First, the applicant has already had an opportunity to describe the proposed project. Second, we will then call on those who have indicated in their registration that they would like to speak. After that, we will call on all those that raise their hand in their Zoom toolbar that they would like to make a comment if they haven't already been called upon. As a reminder, if you're participating in this hearing via telephone only, follow the directions of the moderator on how to identify that you would like to make a comment. You may also submit your comments to EGLE via the MyEnviro portal, email, or US mail. When all the comments have been completed, we will ask if anyone else would like to make a statement. When your name is called, your microphone will be unmuted. As you begin your comments, please state your name and any group or association you may represent. Each person will be given 4 minutes to make their comments. We will indicate to you when you have a minute left. Please begin wrapping up your comments and end within the allotted time. If need be, we will indicate when your time has ended. I ask that we all be courteous and respectful to one another tonight. Please also recognize that EGLE staff are here tonight to provide a fair opportunity for you to express your comments on the proposed project and to listen to those comments. This hearing is being recorded, and your comments will be a part of the information EGLE will consider in making its decision on whether or not to issue a permit on the proposed project. The public comment period for this public hearing is open for 10 days from the date of the hearing, ending on December 18th, 2025. Additional information and comments submitted in writing during the 10-day public comment period will also be considered in EGLE's decision. Following the close of the public comment period, EGLE will make a decision to either issue a permit for the project as proposed or with modifications, or send a letter of denial. You may find out what the decision is by checking the EGLE MyEnviro portal website and searching for the application number HQN 10RH5GPG0. Thank you for your attention. We'll begin calling the names of those who have indicated that they would like to make a statement.
All right, many thanks for reading that, Jim. I guess just to recap and follow up on a couple things that Jim said. As he mentioned, you have 4 minutes to make a comment. You'll see a countdown timer on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Once you start to make your comment, it'll count down from 4 minutes. So you know how much time you have left, and then we'll give you a signal that sounds like this when you have 1 minute left. So if you hear that noise, it means you have 1 minute left, just so you're aware. You don't have to use all the time you're allotted. It's up to you. It will be 1 comment per person to make it fair for everybody, and everybody will have an opportunity to make a comment tonight. As Jim mentioned, we're going to start by the names people who indicated during registration that they wanted to make a comment tonight, list of 5 names. And then once we get through that list of names, we'll move on to the raised hand. So if your name is on that list, we'll call on you in order. If you still would like to make a comment and your name isn't on the list and you haven't made a comment yet, you can raise your hand in Zoom and we'll call on you to make your comment. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and start. First up is Rita Caruso. So Rita, we are going to unmute you. All right, looks like you're unmuted on our end, and you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Rita Locke Caruso. I live at 556 Glendale Circle in Ann Arbor. I thank EGLE for scheduling this public hearing and the City of Ann Arbor staff for the presentation. The plan remains hard to understand nonetheless. As I said, I'm grateful for the public hearing, but I think it's worth noting that this is the first city public engagement with impacted homeowners. I know that doesn't impact on the permit, but I think it stands to be said. My husband and I built our Glendale Circle home over 35 years ago, much of it with our own hands, and we raised our 2 children here. Our home sits on the northern boundary of the Fair Glen Commons. We love the trees, the creek, the wildflowers, and the many critters of the woods, but especially the birds. We cried 30 years ago when the city last worked on the creek and destroyed a wide swath of trees behind our house. I think it went up to 60 feet, that swath of destruction, as they did a creek fix, and that's an air quote on fix, that was profoundly flawed. Now the creek's a mess. It needs help to recover. I'm glad to see that the focus of this project is on creek restoration. Let's get it right this time and help restore the woodlands and the creek. I have some comments specifically about the plans. First of all, the maps remain cryptic to most residents. It remains challenging to locate the work zones with respect to homes because there are only 2 home addresses on the 4 maps. And frankly, that's what many people want to understand and are looking for. Much of the open creek bed and most, if not all, of the large pipe that was installed 30 years ago, they lie outside the city's sanitary and stormwater sewer easement. The eastern downstream opening of the large pipe occupies 15 to 20 feet south outside of the easement boundary and is a significant work site for the proposed plan. What does an easement mean legally if the city can do this? Plans indicate that there's storage of spoils. These are more minor comments from construction that can remain for more than a month. And though the plans specify controls, I don't see a limit on how long these spoils may remain on the site. There should be a limit. And it was interesting to hear the project described as specifically a creek restoration plan, because initially the city project website's objectives were to establish stormwater detention. That was its first objective. And included retrofit of the existing stormwater detention area. And I was going to add, I don't know if it's relevant anymore, but to the best of my current understanding, the current plan seems to limit stormwater detention to pools in line with the creek. And I'm wondering if there is stormwater detention planned for areas outside of the creek bed, and if so, where exactly will that be? It also appears that regulatory authority for this work is complex, and it would have been helpful and would be helpful to have an explanation of the regulatory authority, including the City of Ann Arbor, Washtenaw Water Resources Commissioner, and the state EGLE offices. And finally, I want to thank you for adding tree replacements to the plan. That was very much appreciated. That's a huge concern, I think, for us residents. I would also like to suggest to include some low-growing wildflowers that can help with invasives. And one thing I was thinking of is a native species trout lily. So thank you for considering these concerns and for your work on this project.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Rita. All right, next up is Janet Smith. So Janet, you are unmuted on our end. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. My name is Janet Smith. I live at 542 Glendale. And I am very glad that the city wants to remediate the stream. This is at the far, I guess it's the beginning of the stream, but I do have some concerns. We had a meeting with Teresa Bridges and I'm possibly John Ballant, but I didn't write the name down at the time, back at the end of October. And then this very recently stakes went in, which is very different than what I understood to be the situation. So my concern is the following, which does relate to the environmental concerns. My house is the very lowest elevation here and is closest to the stream. There's a berm there that was done eons ago, long before my time, before my house was built, I believe. And the culvert that comes underneath the driveway of the apartment complex, the Westwood Apartments, points at that berm. And what it looks like from the staking that's been out there is that the force of the high water when there are storms, of which there are many, this is, several times every season, the flow through there is extremely fast. And I think it's going to eat away that berm, and it looks like it may, I'm worried about my house, but it also appears like it might defeat the purpose of this. It's not clear that anybody from the city or the consultant has actually come out here during a heavy storm and seen the volume of water that goes through that culvert that's caused some of the destruction that Teresa already told us about, that really is washing, underwashing it. And I'm concerned that the environmental restoration that everybody would love to see may actually not work out if in fact they're going to shoot the stream out in the direction that it looks like they are, based on, I agree with Rita, the plans are cryptic, that's going to shoot the water straight at the berm. I mean, the volume and the force, that culvert is it's like a jet. The water is forced into it and it goes out very, very, very fast, high volume, a lot of force. And it's very concerning. So that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your comment, Janet. All right, next up is Eileen Ryder, and then after Eileen is Vincent Caruso. So Eileen, you are unmuted on our end. You should be able to unmute your microphone on your end and then make your comment. There should be a prompt or a microphone, but oh, there. Are you there, Eileen?
Sorry, I am not ready to make my comment. I will provide it later on through the website. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. And we will provide that information again, just so you have it. Thank you. All right, so next up is Vincent Caruso, and then after Vincent is Mary Colmes. So Vincent, you are unmuted on our end. And then you should be able to unmute your microphone and begin your comment. All right, are you there, Vincent? There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yep. Okay, sorry. Thanks for having this public hearing. Like I said before, there's issues with the high waters, especially near Virginia Park, that are concerning. We have situations where we get very high water in that area when we have kids in that area, so I'm concerned about that. Also made a comment about the landmark trees that we have. We have some very large trees that be wonderful if we could maintain them and keep them after the project is finished. The easement of these projects are a little bit iffy because the maps are not very clear, especially a non-geologist. Let's see. There is issues, I think, too, and it's been mentioned about flooding, that sometimes the waters are getting pretty close to the homes, something that's very concerning of the neighbors that I've talked to. I think we need to look at using the detention basins that we have more effectively. The one behind our house actually does collect a fair bit of water, but upstream, there's two detention basins or one. I never see water collecting in those basins. So that's the concern I have, that's not being utilized. There has been some flooding issues that, people are concerned about, nothing that I'm aware of that includes houses, but it was water that did come up close to the houses. And so we want to try and deal with that and somehow reduce the amount of flow so that it is not a concern for the homeowners. It's a great place to live, great place in Ann Arbor in Michigan. And hopefully we can move forward and make some improvements to it. And with the more rains we get, the worse it gets. And we've been in situations in Michigan where we've had pretty high rainfall events. 100-year rains are not that uncommon anymore. So hopefully we can get some improvement and preserve the neighborhood. So thanks so much again for your public hearing.
Yeah, thanks for your comment, Vincent. All right, next up is Mary Combs. All right. You there, Mary?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. You can begin when you're ready.
Okay. I live at 538 Glendale Circle, and the culvert from Manchester West is located just south of my husband and my house. And both of us have lived in the neighborhood since this particular area was platted. So I think we've been around longer than anybody, and we've spent many hours. We watched the creek system from its earliest stages, and we've spent many hours trying to mitigate the erosion in the creek behind our home. And the flow coming from Manchester West Culvert, as Janet mentioned, is extremely powerful. During heavy rain events, it resembles rapids, and the conditions are hazardous. So imagine all the water which is down creek from us that everybody's been talking about. It's coming through that 5-foot culvert. And for instance, when I videotape it and I'm searching for it in my photos, I just have to look up rapids and my videos from the creek come up. So, but first I want to summarize the history that has led to most of these problems that we're dealing with today. And many of you probably don't even know this, but originally the creek ran straight from the culvert through the woods undisturbed. Now, and then it went underground below Virginia Park. But when Glendale Circle was built, the developer received DNR approval for an U-shaped berm that redirected the creek south behind the berm. So you're probably familiar with that. I'm not sure everybody on this Zoom would know, but this berm starts at the base of a public easement east of 546 and runs in a curve to the west of 542 Glendale Circle in the cul-de-sac. And this berm protects the lower levels of these two houses, though 542 Janet's house sits much lower and is more at risk. At the time, the volume of water when they put this berm in was underestimated, and the redirected flow caused several severe erosion, 8-foot deep channels that nearly compromised the foundations of the Allen Creek condos to the south. The city addressed that emergency by putting the creek underground at that area about 25 years ago, but the upstream end near Manchester West was never adequately stabilized. So everything that happened there is sort of a mess. But I'm particularly concerned about the newly cut bowl-shaped area in this proposal that's going to be formed at the end of the culvert. And as Janet mentioned, this high-velocity water goes straight toward the berm behind her house and then is going to swirl in this bowl shape. And the creek takes about a 50-degree turn to the south. And the reason we put that, and some of the neighbors put that retaining wall in, is because we actually had that situation originally, that there was a bowl shape there and the water, even 30 years ago, almost 40 years ago, was eroding that bowl so badly that we had to divert the creek farther south. So I'm really worried about that. And I would like you to actually get that creek to go, and the wall on the north side of Manchester to go farther south and east. And one last thing, I want to say that our sanitary sewer connection for our house and 534, which is to the north of us, is sitting under where that north rock wall is coming up toward our house. So it would be great if you could actually identify where that is, so that.
And Mary, you're out of time, so if you could conclude your comments, that'd be great.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you. All right, so that is our list of names of people during registration who wanted to make a comment. So if you have not yet made a comment, you're welcome to do so. Just raise your hand in Zoom, click the raise hand icon. If you're on the phone, it doesn't look like we have any phone-in callers, but in case we do, you can select *9 on your receiver, and that will raise your hand in Zoom. So we're going to go ahead. We have a couple raised hands. Gordon Garwood, we are going to unmute you, and then you can unmute yourself and make your comment.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, my name is Gordy Garwood. We reside at 546 Glendale Circle. We're on the cul-de-sac. We've been here for 24 years. And just a couple comments on my side. Number one, I see that the cul-de-sac access site is still on the prints and has not been ruled out as an access point. A couple thoughts there. The cul-de-sac is private area. The concrete is 4 inches thick and probably not suitable for some of the earth moving equipment that would come through here. So there might be some repair that would need to happen in the event that that is used. We also have a large black locust tree, which is directly next to the easement. And I'm concerned that they would want to take that as well. And that's the only thing kind of keeping that hill in place. So that's my concerns on the cul-de-sac. Second one was on the EPA storm water management model. I do have a little bit of stick time using this years ago. And I know that it had some issue with dealing with extreme events and predicting those. And I know that it takes a decent amount of calibration as well. I did hear, I believe, from Fatima that this was designed around a run for 1.2, 1.5 year storm events. With the limitations of the model, I have some concern there. I think I'd like to see 10-year, 20-year events if we can. Even that might not be sufficient. Again, 100-year events are no longer 100-year events. They're closer to 10 to 20-year events. So a 1.2 to 1.5 year, we're going to see those every year, probably multiple times per year. So if we're really going over the banks annually on this, I have some concerns around erosion on that as well. That's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your comments. All right, Nicholas Bell, we are going to unmute you. And then you can unmute yourself. And are you there, Nicholas?
Thank you. I think the need to restore the creek is evident, and so I welcome the project. I should mention my wife and I own one of the condominiums in the Allen Creek Condo Association on West Liberty. So we're south of Glendale Circle. And echoing a number of the other comments that have been made, I am concerned at the intensity of water coming through the culvert and the, in my judgment, high probability that the works are going to be badly affected by storm events that we're seeing more frequently. So the speed of response of the impermeable areas to an intense storm means there's a huge volume of water, and it is going to be jetted at the banks, as others have described. So I am concerned that. So I think it's a great project. I welcome it, and I guess I would summarize my concerns as the risk that there's been a bit of underdesign, or to the previous speaker's comments that maybe we haven't looked at the 1 in 10, 1 in 20 year events. And so we're being too limited in the considerations we're giving. And at the end of the day, the water has to go somewhere, and it will either widen the stream by eroding the banks, or it will flood out of the bank somewhere else. So, and I'm concerned that we may not have really addressed the root cause of the problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. All right, is there anybody else who has not yet made a comment tonight who would like to? Please raise your hand in Zoom by clicking the raise hand icon, and we'll call on you and you have an opportunity to make your comment. If you're on the phone, you can select *9, that will raise your hand in Zoom. And we'll call on you using the last 4 digits of your phone number and unmute you so you have an opportunity to unmute yourself. If we don't have any other raised hands, the next part of the evening will be to go through those other ways to make a comment in case you ran out of time or have additional comments you'd like to make. We'll also provide Jim's contact information in case you have additional questions, and then we'll work on closing out the evening. So I'm still not seeing any other raised hands, so I'd like to invite Jim to read the closing statement for us tonight.
All right, now I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you for your comments and cooperation. We appreciate your interest in the proposed project and that you took the time to be here tonight. As indicated at the beginning of the hearing, you may submit additional written comments until December 18th, 2025. Following the close of the public comment period, we will consider all comments received and make a decision on the proposed project. Just to remind those that may still want to submit a comment, comments can be submitted via the MyEnviro portal, email, or the U.S. mail. The hearing is now closed. Thank you again.
Yeah, many thanks, Jim. As Jim mentioned, those other ways to make a comment are open until December 18th. Got this slide up again that has the information, and we're going to put some information in the chat again, I believe. You can submit comments through MyEnviro. Submission number HQ9-10RH-5GPG0, or by mail to EGLE Water Resources Division, Jackson District Office, P.O. Box 30458, Lansing, Michigan 48909. And then the comment period is going to be open until December 18th. All right. If you have additional questions, you can contact Jim Bales at 517-257-4532 or at balesj@michigan.gov, and that's BALESJ@MICHIGAN.gov. I believe that was put in the chat as well. Any closing comments for us, Jeff, before we close out of the evening?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for attending this hearing tonight. I think we had some really good comments and questions that were raised, and there were a few questions I think that were left over. Jim and I will probably look through those and get back to you with those. You can also send those questions directly to Jim at that contact info that Ryan gave. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and I hope you all have a great night.
Yeah, many thanks, Jeff and Jim, and all of our panelists for the applicant and all of you for being part of this hearing. Last thing I'll just remind you of is that this hearing was recorded. It will be put on our YouTube channel in a day or two, so you can search for the hearing and find it there in case you want to watch it again, or forward the link to someone else. So with that, thanks again for being part of this. Hope you all have a great rest of your night.